breaking down all the plays and getting you in the action. We've got you covered all season long. Welcome to the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to episode 3 of the BCSN Nation Podcast, season 2, powered by Marco's Pizza. I'm your host, Brendan Goforth, as always, and joining with me, oh man, we're back for week 3. We got Justin Felkamp, we got Mike Robb. How are we feeling, guys?
We're good, and we're guaranteed we will not talk Aaron Rodgers on the BCSN Nation Podcast. That right there is reason enough to stay with us for the full 30 minutes.
100%. Mike Robb, how you doing?
Hey, I did see that clip with Aaron Rodgers where he was jawing with that defensive line. We just said we weren't.
I just said we're not talking about it, Mike Robb. Thank you for cutting yourself off.
Welcome to No, I'm kidding. We're not. Welcome to your Wednesday afternoon here on BCSN. That's what we are. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about, we're coming into week 3 here of the 2023 high school football season, which means we've made it through 2 weeks. We've gotten a little bit of an example of what these teams are capable of. We've seen how some teams have improved from weeks 1 to 2 and how they maybe have not improved from weeks 1 to 2. We're going to talk about that today. We've also got our player of the week. This was really great to see. Daryl Barnett Jr. from the Scott Bulldogs came away with this week's Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram player of the week. We're going to talk about that. We've got our clip of the week. It was a big play from Anthony Wayne. That's going to be our clip of the week. And then we're going to talk about the Detroit Catholic Central at the Toledo Central Catholic. A bit of a tongue twister for you guys today for our game of the week and even more. Make sure you catch us next week and every week on BCSN at 4 o'clock. That's when brand new episodes of this podcast go out. You can also listen to us throughout the week on our podcast platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and on bcsnnation.com/podcast. Make sure to check out BCSN on our social media. It's going to be at BCSN Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. All right, let's get into this first discussion here today, guys. We're talking, like I said, we're in week 3. We've had our first 2 weeks. Typically, you guys say that going from week 1 to week 2 is kind of where you see the biggest improvements from teams. They get a lot of learnings from the first week. Jumping into week 2, they make some adjustments. What did we see out of our team so far through the first 2 weeks? What are some teams that made a really good stride from week 1 to week 2? Mike, what you think?
Well, I look at this Clay versus Northview game. I think both of those teams made really good strides, in my opinion. With Northview, they struggled to gain any offense versus Southview in that week 1, massacre is what you would like to call it. But what they ended up doing is playing versus Clay, showing some moxie, coming back, Boston Vargas stepping up, making some big-time plays, and they hung in there with Clay and made this a game. So I think Northview had a lot of strides, and they're going to be a little bit better than what people expected.
Yeah, their running game was pretty impressive against a Clay team there. A lot of explosive plays on both sides of the ball. That was 42-35 final score, so plenty touchdowns. That was just an entertaining, fun game to watch. I'll take you to Perrysburg. Perrysburg goes on the road, gets a 8-second to go field goal from their kicker to win at Marysville 17-14. I know Marysville coming off a season that was kind of like 7-5, I believe. A couple seasons ago, Perrysburg played Marysville in the playoffs. So that was an interesting and intriguing week 2 matchup for me to look at. And Perrysburg, yes, they beat St. Francis, blew the doors off them in week 1, but we know St. Francis is going to be down this year. So you're like, okay, you did what you were supposed to do in week 1, but then they come back and just tear it up and get a road win. And we just talked, remember Anthony Wayne went on the road to Hilliard Derby down in Columbus, and Coach Brungar was telling us that going on a 2.5-hour bus ride is tough.
Yes.
All the challenges that entail there. Perrysburg does all of that and gets out of town with the win and comes back 2-0.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Perrysburg a little bit later in the show today. But so we've talked about some teams that improved from weeks 1 to weeks 2. What are some teams that you think are kind of lagging behind and maybe are a little surprising that they haven't maintained some form of success throughout the first 2 weeks of the season so far, Justin?
I'll go 2 teams that come to mind initially, but both of these teams have played tough competition. St. John's 0-2, Whitmer 0-2. Whitmer goes on the road, puts up some points against Olentangy, but comes up short, and then takes on Central Catholic at home. And Mike Robb, everybody knows that Mike Robb loves Central Catholic and what he thinks they're capable of this year. He's already stated on Game Day Nation that he thinks they're winning a D3 state title.
Put the ring on them.
There you go. So, definite challenges there. And then St. John's, they've been bitten by the turnover bug in week 1, then get beat by a more well-rounded team in Anthony Wayne in week 2. And St. John's has 2 sophomore quarterbacks they're going with. I don't know what you could say as far as who you've seen. Coy Hammock and then Carson Polowitz. Seemed to me in week 2, Polowitz got more reps, more playing time, had a nice deep ball, touchdown pass to Joe Taylor. So you've seen some growth from those teams, St. John's and Whitmer, but obviously neither of those programs would want to start the season 0-2.
You definitely don't. That is for sure. And we're going to see here coming up in week 3 how some of these teams are able to potentially rebound, continue pushing forward, and what happens there. All right, we're going to jump into, oh man, I'm so excited about this one. It's going to be our Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Player of the Week. Stick around. Here we go. All right, welcome into our Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Player of the Week. This was awesome. If you guys are paying attention to our social media, if you guys are paying attention to BCSN Thursday night, Mike Robb was on the call. We had the Scott Bulldogs at the Glass Bowl going up against St. Francis. This game was absolutely electric, a long game. And we have our Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Player of the Week, Daryl Barnett Jr. Listen to the stat line. He had a pick 6 to start off the game, first off in the first half. And then he just went on to have 1 passing TD, 3 total rushing touchdowns, 2 total INTs, and a 2-point conversion in literally the last seconds of the game to get the win over St. Francis. Mike Robb, you were there. What did you see out of Daryl Barnett Jr. this week?
You saw a young man who knew that he could get this thing done, and he did it. I mean, it's not a tale of a kid who just kind of stepped into a spot that's just kind of average and just kind of did something special. He's a special athlete. He's a Division I football player, in my opinion. What he can do on the basketball court, what he can do on the football field, he put all that together, and he showed his athletic ability. Carnell Smith went down with an injury, and he had to step in at quarterback. We thought this was lights out. But once he starts seeing those lanes, once the defensive ends start losing their containment, and he got into space, he does what he normally do when he get the football at the receiver spot. He break guys down, he find angles, and he uses his athleticism to score touchdowns. He torched St. Francis defense all night long. They could not stop the quarterback run. They throw a nice little swing pass out to the running back in the flats, and they were just making plays left and right. Now, it came down to who had the ball last. And defensively, when you had Barnett, he stayed on that defensive side, got those interceptions to keep his team in the balance. And in the final moments of the game, this was just amazing. For them to get all the way down the field on that kick return and then set it up to win that game, some say they had 5 downs. Now go watch the film yourself. Go watch the film. But they scored that touchdown right as the storm started to come in, the rain started falling, and Scott with a huge historical victory here, and Daryl Barnett will go down in Scott and local high school football infamous history because he did something that one man should never be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, they set it up. Coach Hassan Wilson knew that, hey, they had an opportunity for Toledo Public School to play a Catholic school in a big environment, live on Thursday night BCSN football. Everything was kind of laid out. A little storybook. You got a storm coming. You got to get the game in. You got a touchdown from Barnett. Then you got a 2-point conversion to go for the win. 38-37 final score. Hats off to him. We did a top recruit feature on him just before, and it was just great timing because you say he's a D1 guy right now. So far, prior to that performance, he had looks, not even offers, looks from the University of Indianapolis, University of Findlay. I hope at least those two have, here's the paperwork kind of thing. But as you mentioned, a D1 type of athlete, and I think a performance like this only amplifies, intensifies, hopefully, the attention that he would get, because that's what we all want to see. And I talk about this with recruiting, with families and coaches and anybody in the community who will listen. Just because you're not going to Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, whatever the case may be, we know that Ryan Montgomery down at Findlay, he's that type of kid.
Yeah.
But it's just as meaningful for a player in a family, a student athlete, to get a Division II scholarship
Absolutely.
or a Mid-American Conference scholarship. Just as important to that family, that school, that community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So hats off to Daryl Barnett Jr. Great performance. Up there already, week 2, Game of the Year nominee.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Player of the Year nominee, too.
Yeah. Yep.
Keep it locked to BCSN. We'll let you know when that happens. All right. We're going to jump into our next one here. This was, we've talked about Clay and Mason Heintschel a couple times so far on the podcast, but it just seems like every week there's more and more to see. We already mentioned a little bit about Northview, which of course that was the matchup this past week between Clay and Northview. But Mason Heintschel, let me just give you this stat line as well. So they had the 42-35 win over Northview. Mason had 4 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. And if you watch the way that he played on the field this week, it didn't matter what the defense threw at him. If the play was still alive, there was a chance. And that's exactly what happened in Clay's win over Northview this week. Mason Heintschel actually announced on his Twitter this week that he received his first D1 college offer from the Toledo Rockets. So basically, I just simply want to ask you guys, what have we seen out of Mason and the Clay Eagles so far this year? And with the next 3 matches coming up between Whitmer, Findlay, and Perrysburg, can they maintain this momentum pushing into these following weeks?
Mike Rob, you go ahead and start.
Well, look, I think what Mason Heintschel has done is definitely over the past year and a half or year and 0.2 of a season, he has done a really good job of showcasing what he does as a leader. And that's what you want in a quarterback, is you want somebody that can lead the team, that can step up and take command. And that's something that we saw from him no matter who the competition is. Last year, he made great plays versus Central Catholic and Whitmer. Can't wait till week 3. This is going to be the test, the real test to see what Mason really can do. But now this is just about him showing that he has the dominance. We broke down with the big play breakdown, the pass where he threw across his body back inside to Byers, where he threw an amazing pass that most kids can't make. He has the intangibles. He has the toughness, and he's not afraid to run the football. Dual threat quarterbacks get scholarships, and this is exactly what he showed. He showed that he had the ability to run the ball when he needed to and make the smart decisions and not keep his team in trouble.
All of that, and then I'll add accuracy. He's 56 of 80, 70%. We see solid high school quarterbacks in the 50%.
Yeah.
He's at 70% through 2 weeks, 633 yards, 8 touchdown passes, and just 1 INT. He's got Troy Hazuda, a legit wide receiving threat. You've already talked about Hudson Byers coming up with a big catch against Sandusky in the walk-off style in week 1. He is definitely a playmaker with both his legs and his feet. Mike Grubb just said the dual threat nature of his style of play and his leadership capabilities. You brought up Brendan Whitmer, Findlay, and Perrysburg coming up. All right, so I did a little historical research here. So they're 2-0 to start this year. What will they be? We'll find out. Last year, they started 3-0, ended 5-5. 2021 started 2-0, ended up 2-8. Throw out 2020, COVID year, blasted out of the universe. 2019 started 4-0, finished 5-5. 2018 started 1-0, finished 1-9. Okay, so that's history, as Mike Robb likes to say, facts. Those are facts.
Big facts.
So not just opinion. Those are statistical, numerical figures. However, I will say that they have been building a little bit. They've put some solid teams, and I think Coach John Gallius is not just, a good season type of coach. He has laid the foundation and kind of putting brick upon brick upon brick. And you need a player like Mason to stick and stay at Clay High School and have a group of buddies who have come up through the ranks from 5th grade, junior high, all the way up. And I think they've got a core group of kids who have that type of special play capability that can lead to victories. The next step, the challenge for Clay is, okay, we've seen you do it against Northview. Yes. We've seen you do it historically against Maumee. Can you do it against Whitmer, Findlay, and Perrysburg? Maybe not necessarily blow their doors off or win the game, but is it a game in the third quarter? Is it a game in the fourth quarter?
Well, I want to just tap on that one.
Sure.
The Whitmer game here is, yes, this is the big one. You know, they say this is the big one. This is the big one right here. And they got to step up and they got to show up because Whitmer has the offense to blow them out the water defensively because Clay has not shown defensively that they're really a good football team. And that's what football comes down to. Can you play defense? Can you stop people? Brady Fork going on against Mason Heintschel, 2 Division I quarterbacks. It's going to be a lot of offense, but it's going to be which team has defense. And I think Whitmer has the edge there. But if Clay can show up and make the plays and make stops, this would be a historic win for their program.
All right, we're going to keep our eye out, and we're going to find out
playoff
what
points
happens.
too.
There it is, the playoff points. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next segment here. It's our clip of the week. You're watching and or listening to the BCSN Nation Podcast powered by Marco's Pizza. We're jumping in here to our clip of the week. This was from last week. Anthony Wayne and St. John's. It was our game of the week this past week. We have the DB, Carter Schaller, that just check out this play right here. St. John's are trying to go for a touchdown here, throwing it to the end zone, but no! Picked off right there at the goal line. It just watch what Carter Schaller does right here. Just takes it all the way back. Making it look easy.
With that convoy out in front of him, Cadence Carswell and the rest of those guys blocking. I mean, they made it a lot easier for him to get that pick six. But taking a look here, obviously you got some type of zone coverage going on. They're sitting here holding in the middle of the field. He made the wrong read. He had a man open on the right hash.
He's getting pressured.
He forced it to the wrong way. So Schaller being in the right man, Johnny on the spot as we like to call it, he was there, made the pick, and he made a couple of nice moves to get in there, Justin. That's what I saw.
100%. I also saw great camera work by our BCSN camera operators. Nice. Great job down in White House. But quarterback here, thrown off his left foot, single foot. You're not going to get any volume or any velocity on the ball.
Yep.
And then thrown in the middle of the field where you see there's just one too many blue jerseys there to throw that football. So that's mistake number one for St. John's quarterback there. But still, great instincts by the defensive backs. The last 7 years, Andy Brungard has been there. Anthony Wayne has been the defensive team. We've seen them throw shutout upon shutout consecutively. But when you're right there and it's 3rd and 8, okay, so it's not like 4th and 10 or not 4th down where you just, no matter what, you kind of put it up or a glorified punt kind of play. You don't have to make that throw, but a great play there. And then the 100 yards. I mean, as TV people,
you love to see it.
A triple digit, you're like, oh, man, no way. He did 100 yards right on the goal line. That's exactly right on the goal line. But that move right there, that was it right there. And then a great block.
Blocks.
Yes.
And then, you said the convoy. The flag was even waving perfectly right there. That was just a great play. And in many intents and purposes, second quarter, 6 minutes to go until halftime. 14-0 at that point. Tack on again. Lights out there. And Anthony Wayne gets a much-needed dub.
Yes, this was a very pivotal play right here that definitely sent Anthony Wayne on the road to getting that win. All right, if you want to see more highlight clips just like this, then check out our TikTok. It's at BCSN Sports. We put out these highlight plays every single Friday for your viewing pleasure. All right, let's go ahead and let you guys know about our Unison Health Student Section of the Week. We do this every single week. You guys have been showing up. You've been loud and you've been proud every single week this year so far, and it's been fantastic to see. This week, the winner of the Unison Health Student Section of the Week was Anthony Wayne. The Blue Crew, they showed up. They were loud and proud. They were going crazy. It was a good time. If you guys want to win the Student Section of the Week this upcoming week, then make sure that you share your photos and your videos with us on social media. Make sure to tag us at BCSN Sports and use the hashtag SSOTW for a chance to win. All right. Real quick, before we get into our game of the week here, we got another game coming up here. We got Perrysburg at Fremont Ross. I want you guys' quick thoughts here. Perrysburg has started off the season very hot behind a QB by the name of Josh Tackett. Let's make sure we get that right to start it off this week. Josh, I got you. Don't worry about it. Starting off really strong here. How are the Perrysburg Yellow Jackets? How are they looking as they head into this NLL matchup on the road a long way at Fremont Ross this week?
Yeah, an interesting matchup here. It's the first time that they've played each other, these two teams programmed since 2008. We're going to delve into that a little bit on game day tailgate on Friday when we are live at the Central Catholic game that we'll get to in just a second. But here's my line for the Yellow Jackets, Mike Robb. Coming into this season, they had question marks. Why? Because Connor Wallensack gone to UT. They had TJ Tackett gone playing baseball at BG. They had Grant Zimmerly gone playing football at UT. So those were all the question marks. Now they're starting to get some answers because they have Josh Tackett at quarterback. Also, Jack Bohr from wide receiver position. Now they got Gavin Fennekin making some plays. Now they got Reed Gherkin, a freshman, number 74 on the offensive line. And they got number 76, Andrew Bowden, a senior, 6'6", 305. So those questions have become answers, and we've already talked about it earlier in the podcast here. They got to win in week 1. They got to win in week 2 on the road against Marysville. Now they get into the heart of their NLL schedule, the new look NLL, and they're going to play teams for the first time in a long time like Fremont Ross. Fremont Ross, mind you, coming off a solid win in the second oldest rivalry in the state of Ohio, beating Sandusky 21-15, and we've seen some strides for Fremont Ross as well. So this could be a solid, interesting, intriguing matchup.
I mean, honestly, when I look at it, I think that Fremont Ross should be in a situation where they get their backs against the wall and they got to show up and say, hey, look, we're the underdogs in this team, in this league here, and we're not expected to come out and win. And that's kind of the mentality they have to have. And J.D. Moncrief, their running back, he's pretty solid. He's a really quick kid in the track, on the track field and track and field. But in football, he is tough and physical, and that's what they're going to have to rely on. That young offense, the young defense, they've basically had to revamp everything they're doing from coordinators down there in Fremont. So this is going to be a big game for them, big test. But in my opinion, Perrysburg should be able to roll on with this, with the veteran leadership that they have, going on a roll, having big wins and big moments, and also limiting Marysville to a few points. So I think this is a game where it could be a trap game if Perrysburg think they're going to come and steamroll this team. But Fremont Ross won't lay down.
Yeah, Perrysburg got Fremont Ross on week 3, then weeks 4, 5, and 6. Southview, Clay, Northview. Hey, Southview we're going to talk about Southview in just a second here in regards to their game against Findlay. That's another intriguing matchup, but Perrysburg, I think, has a chance. They could be looking at 10-0. I know they got challenges down the road, but this Marysville win, I think, sets them up a little bit. Yeah. They got a chance. Not putting the crystal ball out just yet, but just looking at the next weeks through week 6, they get past Fremont Ross and Southview. I think they should be sitting pretty. Could be 6-0, and you start state rankings type of stuff. It could be there.
So you're telling me there's a chance. You guys can check out that game on Friday, 7 o'clock on the BCSN Now app, Perrysburg at Fremont Ross. All right, let's jump into our big one. It's the it's the game of the Catholic schools. We're going to jump into our game of the week. You're watching and or listening to the BCSN Nation Podcast powered by Marco's Pizza. We're going to talk our Dave White Chevrolet Game of the Week this week, 7 o'clock on BCSN. This week, by the way, we've got Detroit Catholic Central at Toledo Central Catholic. Once again, location of Game Day Tailgate. The Shamrocks are coming off of a Week 1 win over Dearborn, 28-7. And, of course, the Fighting Irish are coming off of 2 huge back-to-back wins over Findlay and Whitmer, both of those games in dominating fashion. All right, guys, what are we looking at here in our big game of the week this week?
Well, I think the first thing that I notice is 2 weeks of football in Ohio, 1 week of football in Michigan. Advantage Ohio teams, advantage Toledo Central Catholic, because they've had more experience, simply put. And real football is dramatically different than scrimmage and preseason football. And the fact that Central Catholic has just looked dominant in both of their victories thus far. They've, much like Perrysburg that we just talked about, questions coming in because of departures both on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball from their Division II state championship last year. They're getting those answers. Terry Collins has played well. He had some interceptions that he's going to have to correct last week against Whitmer. But they have the two-headed monster with Marquand Braswell and Tyler Morgan at running back. We've already talked about their offensive line in depth on Game Day Tailgate, on the podcast, on Sports Nightly. So everybody knows how good and formidable that offensive line is. They've already got a commitment for Ohio State, Mark Nave. They got Elijah Williams committed to Kent State on down the line there. And they're going to continue to run the ball and put the pressure on this Detroit Catholic Central team, who, yes, comes in with plenty of pedigree, 10 state championships, 4 state championships for Toledo Central Catholic, so 14 total state championships combined between these two programs historically. So they will come ready to go, and I think this is the statement game. This is the new look Detroit Catholic League with the best Toledo football program in the area joining this league, and it's like, okay, we'll find out how good this Toledo team is. I think there might be some Detroit Catholic League programs like, oh, we're Detroit. We got a bigger population base. We should be able to handle these guys type of thing. But I think Toledo Central Catholic's going to maybe show them that might not be the case. And keeping in mind, Mike, Rob, these programs have met before. Yes. And Whitmer has played DCC multiple times before. So this isn't the first look that Coach Greg Dempsey and his coaching staff and his program has seen this Shamrock DCC team.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of the guys on the staff for DCC. They run the head coaches over the Legacy Center out there in Brighton, Michigan. I'm taking my young guys out there to play 7-on-7. So let me tell you, they got access, and this is bigger than just that Detroit area because DCC is pulling kids from Novi, from Brighton, from Ann Arbor, from Detroit, from everywhere. So this is a program that's getting the pick of the litter, and it's kind of the same mentality of what a St. Ed's has in Cleveland when they can recruit whole Cuyahoga County, millions of people. But like you said, that doesn't matter because Greg Dempsey knows exactly what he's doing. I think the advantage is going to be on both sides for the offensive line. They both got veteran offensive lines, but the game will be told about the defensive lines. Can Michael Cannings do the work up front? Can he get through and make the plays that he needs to make? And that's going to be the game that I'm looking for is the front seven, who's making plays, who can run the football, because passing the ball is going to be tough on either one of these teams. Now, advantage in the secondary in the skill position goes to the Michigan teams. Why? Because in Ohio, kids aren't allowed to do 7-on-7 all offseason. And so I get to go out here to Brighton, Michigan, and I see all these kids every single weekend running routes, catching passes, doing cover 2, doing cover 3. Now if an Ohio team could come out here and beat them, that just means they're just coached up better. But these players will have more reps. Having one less game does hurt. But more importantly, these are competitors on both sides of the ball. This is the league that Central Catholic should be in. Heck, if you ask me, Perrysburg and Anthony Wayne should be competing in this league as well, because this is just the kind of talent that you want to be exposed to. You don't want to play against cupcakes every week. You want to go into a heavyweight matchup. That way you're testing your program, testing your team, so when you have those late game playoff runs, you're ready to go. So this is going to be a great matchup. I still got Central Catholic with the advantage.
Yeah. All right. Real quick with that. You still running the state championship back for Central Catholic?
Absolutely. I'll live on that until I see a team just dismantle them, and what they did to Whitmer just kind of confirmed my thoughts.
All right. Well, you heard it here. This is what Mike Robb says. He's sticking to it. All right. That is it for our game of the week. Let's jump into a bunch of other games that we got coming up here on BCSN this week. Justin, what are we looking at for our games on Thursday and Friday this week?
Yeah, in addition to the game list that we're about to show you, the Southview hosting Findlay game, very, very intriguing. Again, we'll have highlights of that one on Game Day Nation and 13ABC's Football Friday at 11 o'clock on Friday. But here's the matchup. We're getting Mike Robb north of the border to Whiteford for the first time. He's going to go through the enchanting forest.
Let's go.
Joining the Bobcats as they take on Ida. And then also on Friday, we got DCC Central Catholic. We've already talked about that. St. Mary's at St. John's, Perrysburg, Fremont Ross, Start at Springfield, Napoleon, Northview, Skyline, Bedford, Maumee, Bowser, Evergreen, Rossford, Shelby, Bellevue, and Rocky River at Perkins. What I like about this, guys, we're talking Detroit Catholic League. We're talking NLL. We're talking City League versus NLL. We are talking north of the border, Bedford. And then we got Maumee, NBC versus City League. And then we got Evergreen, Rossford. We got NWOAL against the NBC. So we got the SBC out in Erie. So we are covering so many leagues and conferences this week. We are looking forward to those matchups. And a number of those games, as you mentioned, playoff points with some of our top-tier games with the Clay and Whitmer you mentioned before. A lot of playoff points kind of on the line with some matchups where you really don't know, like what should we see and who's going to come out victorious could not only affect week 1 standings, but playoff points when you're looking at week 8, 9, and 10. But a lot of intriguing matchups, all those games live on the BCSN app. And then we'll have Game Day Nation with Mike, and Joel, and Game Day Tailgate at 6:30 live from Gallagher Stadium for our Central Catholic matchup against Detroit Catholic Central. 6:30 Game Day Tailgate on BCSN and the NLL Network. Tune in on Friday.
Yes, real quick, your thoughts. You mentioned before Southview and Findlay.
Yeah.
Real quick thoughts on what we see out of that matchup.
Yeah, two good quarterbacks there. Obviously, Ryan Montgomery is the cream of the crop there, but I think this is a measuring stick game for Southview. They're in the smaller Cardinal division against Findlay in the Buckeye division. Findlay has played well. They torched Lima Senior, but I think it'll be a tougher test against Southview. And this will we'll find out a lot about both teams after this game.
All right. Well, that's going to do it here for this week on the BCSN Nation podcast powered by Marco's Pizza. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can catch us next week, Wednesday at 4 o'clock on BCSN. You can listen to us on all of our podcast platforms. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and on BCSNNation.com/podcast. Make sure to check us out on our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at BCSN Sports. All right, we're throwing the balls. We're going crazy. We'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, we'll see you next week.